Welcome to Delta Source, your number one source for gently used Y-Wings. Only knocked out once, never blown up.
Not crashed on Ryloth and didn't have to salvage a astromech from it.
Exactly. No, these still have all the paneling and everything.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know a guy. Uh, we're here to talk about the third episode of the Clone Wars. Season 1, Shadow of Malevolence, which is part 2 of the Malevolence arc.
And can I say,
Wherein...
that's a really, really cool episode name. Just
I would...
those cool words
Yeah,
put together.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. Feels very Star Warsy, you know?
Yeah.
Shadow of Malevolence.
So our quote for
Those
this
vibes to it,
episode
yes.
is that
So,
easy is the path to wisdom for those not blinded by ego. Oh yeah. We can go ahead and start with our episode description. So,
problem. Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second there.
oh, welcome back. I just read the quote
Hi.
and now I'm going to read the synopsis.
Sweet. I didn't hear any of that, but I hope that my confused calls for, oh well. Anyway,
That's just a bonus for the viewers.
exactly. Please go on. I am back.
With the help of his Padawan Ahsoka and Jedi Master Plo Koon, Anakin utilizes new long-range Y-wing bombers to lead a bold strike on General Grievous's warship, the Malevolence, and its destructive weapon. As General Grievous uses the Malevolence to terrorize medical bases, the Jedi rush to defend the Republic's base. With help from his Padawan and Master Plo Koon, Anakin leads a bold strike mission into enemy territory. So,
Yes. And all these things do happen in this episode,
yeah, it's very descriptive.
just as advertised, folks. It really is. Yes, this is a pretty darn cool episode.
I agree.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. That's got a good space battle in it, and I always like a good space battle.
And we got some giant space creatures living in the nebula.
Those are always cool. Those are always fun. Yeah.
Um, so easy is the path to wisdom for those not blinded by ego. I tried to identify who was wise and or who was blinded by ego.
Yes.
And the main egotists that I identified were Anakin and Grievous.
I would say you're absolutely right. Yes, I was gonna say that's what I got too from that.
Yeah. So Grievous is really overconfident in the malevolence as a weapon,
Mm.
to the point where he puts off completing his main objective because they travel to the location of this medical base, and the Shadow Squadron led by Anakin is trying to intercept them when they arrive there, and the malevolence gets there first and begins to lay siege to the base, but instead of going right for the base, the main objective, he is so overconfident that he has them target the fleeing transports because he wants the
Mm.
satisfaction of a complete victory.
Mm-hmm.
But because he didn't just get down to business, he ends up failing.
Yeah, he should have gotten in there and done what he had to do, but no, he had to. His overconfidence, I would say, was his weakness in this particular case.
You may be onto something with that.
It seems a reasonably common flaw among the villains in this franchise.
Yeah, so Grievous's ego with being so confident in the malevolence really did not lead him down the path to wisdom.
No, it led him down the path of almost losing his cool super ship.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and or Anakin rather was so confident in his plan to barge right in there, blast that ship. Led to him losing quite a few of his Y wings
Yeah.
and ultimately having to kind of back off and try again.
Mm-hmm. And by the end of the episode, he has to like solemnly go and reflect on the men that he lost because of his plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely he's so confident in his plan. He's confident that Shadow Squadron can do anything, even the most dangerous missions, such as making the Balmora run through that nebula and past all
Yeah.
the Neb rays.
Turns out maybe they can't. Though
Right.
they actually they'd make it okay in the end, but it's a bit touch and go there.
Yeah, it's only one of the Y-wings that gets damage actually
Yeah,
inside the nebula. That I think that might have been Matchstick.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Um, and then because he was damaged in the nebula, whenever they are trying to make it up and over, the ion blast that the Malevolent shoots at them, that damaged Y-wing ends up getting caught, and is one of the 3 Y-wings that gets hit with the ion cannon
That's
blast.
true. Pull one out. Yeah. Our boy Matchstick.
Yep. Uh,
Mm.
and also, I hadn't thought about it till I read it in that episode description, but the Y-wing being a long-range bomber, because
That's true.
they travel independently with their own hyperdrives,
Yeah, that's
first
a
to
very
the
neat
outside
thing.
of that nebula, then through the nebula. And I don't remember if they arrive at that point or if they have to do another jump on the other side of the nebula. But yeah, they travel a long way to get there.
They do. Hyperspace equipped fighter craft is kind of a new thing. There's actually it's cool because there's a couple sources that comment on, including the Revenge of the Sith novelization actually.
Yeah,
Comments on the fact that hyperspace capable fighters are kind of a new thing.
yeah,
Hyperdrive rings being sort of a stopgap, and then ships with actual integrated hyperdrives being even rarer than
yeah,
that. So it's a cool little technological detail. People say technology never advances or changes in Star Wars, but sometimes it kind of does.
yeah.
Gotta look past the surface level.
And then
See.
presumably that must become a more common feature, or at least it's common in X-wings, because then you
Oh yeah,
get
X-Wing's
to
got
the
it.
original
B-Wing's got
trilogy,
it.
and they're digging up these
Yeah.
dusty old things, and they've got hyperdrives.
It definitely, yeah. By the time of the OT, and certainly by the time of like the New Republic era, in Legends at least, in canon to a certain extent as well, a lot of fighters like it's almost standard to have hyperdrive on a fighter at that point, and you kind of have to specifically say no, these are going to be short range. You
Right.
know, TIE fighter is short range now because it doesn't have a hyperdrive,
Yes.
rather than a Y wing being long range because it does. That's considered normal at
Mm-hmm.
this point, and that's cool. It's a nice detail. It's always cool to see the march of technology.
Yeah.
Even if it is sort of incremental, it's still there. It's present. Yeah, it is. It is the first appearance of, well, chronologically, I think the first appearance of Y wings anyway, because it's
Yeah.
they're brand new and they look really cool. I love the Clone Wars Y wing, like,
With the filled-in body.
yeah, exactly. It's a little sleeker, looks a little fancier. It kind of does a good job of bridging the aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
gap between the OT and the PT, I would say, as well,
Yeah.
which is a nice touch. Not to ramble poetically about Y wings for 20 minutes, but anyway,
So more
there you go.
about Anakin and his ego.
Yes.
Um, Once they make it past that first ion blast, most of the squadron, and then they're doing an attack run on the Malevolence itself. Their plan was to bomb the bridge and destroy Grievous, which would have brought a swift end to the war.
That is true.
But first, Ahsoka tries to prod Anakin and say, you know, you might be able to pilot through all this, but not everyone in Shadow Squadron can, and
Yeah,
we're losing men.
I'm
We
all as
need
good
to
as you
come
are.
up with a new plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes first Ahsoka and then Plo Koon both imploring Anakin to change plans before he finally lets go of his ego with the plan that he came up with to alter it. And that's when they decide to strike the ion cannons themselves to hopefully make it overload. That was a big
Yeah,
hope, because if it didn't work, yeah, they would have been
it
screwed.
would have been
But
real trouble at that point. Yeah, that's for sure.
but it does work, and basically cripples the Malevolence, because the overload and the feedback and everything ends up making the ship start exploding all over the place.
Yeah, they really that design, man, it's got some real big cascade system failure type
Yeah.
problems that they need to maybe. But it was a prototype kind of, so maybe they still have some kinks they need to iron out. At least they didn't put a single hole in there that the whole thing blows up if you shoot it. I mean,
Mm.
could be worse, you know.
The final point I noted, for someone who was not blinded by ego, is that Plo Koon, the whole time, I think, is the most wise character present, and
Mm,
he's not he's not putting forth certain plans that we should do this. He's trying to play the background and advise caution,
Mhm.
and more prudent actions. But yeah, that was the only counterpoint I noticed to the egotism.
Yeah, he definitely does have that sort of. Uh, he's not. He's trying to play devil's advocate, and he's trying to get everyone to kind of back up a little bit and be reasonable in the situation. And
Hmm.
that makes sense. He's got a lot more experience than both Ahsoka and uh, Anakin. So
Oh yeah.
him kind of playing the role of the wise master there is very keeping with Star Wars and with Star Wars is like roots in samurai movies and such
Hmm.
as well. The wise old master who offers advice, but
Yes.
yeah.
So, do you have any more
There
points
you
you
go.
want to discuss
Uh,
about this episode?
Uno Mas final point, which is this uh this attack of a bunch of fighters being used to disable a uh, large experimental powerful warship that can't be like directly confronted uh, by Republic capital ships. I've heard it said, and I think there's some validity to this,
Yeah.
that this is a deliberate reference to the Royal Navy engaging the Bismarck during World War II, which is a
Okay.
German battleship, because the Bismarck was much bigger and had bigger guns than most of what the Royal Navy had available to try and fight it with. However, they attacked it with aircraft
Yeah.
launched from, and they managed to disable its rudder so that it couldn't escape, and then they could bring it
Ah.
to battle and actually engage it with their bigger ships. So that's uh, I think that this might be, if the Dave Filoni knows his history and George Lucas and such, and Star Wars doesn't have roots in World War II. I mean, you got people
Yes.
dogfighting in space with turret guns on their starfighters. So it's, if they're leaning on their World War II roots a little bit there, I think this could have been a deliberate reference to the sinking of the Bismarck, especially well in the next episode. But we'll get to that next time.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that's pretty likely. I don't know for sure,
Yeah.
but I guess I have the impression that George Lucas is a history buff around
Mm-hmm.
world wars and stuff since he was using that footage for the early cuts of Star Wars.
That is also true. Yeah, the Dam Busters footage, that movie about World War II bombers, and then he took heavy inspiration from with his oh, I've
Hmm.
never actually seen that movie, Dam Busters, but that's apparently the movie that he kind of took a lot of inspiration from for the attack on the first Death Star.
Okay.
Or
Interesting.
yeah, it's about a squadron of bombers attacking a dam, in I don't know, Norway or something in World War II.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I hear it's a classic war movie. Maybe we'll
Okay.
do an episode about that at some point. Probably
Yeah.
not, but you never know. Maybe they'll
Never
put that on
know.
the Patreon or something. Anyway, I don't
So,
have a Patreon, but
I
besides the
think
point.
that's all we got for you this
That's
time.
all we got this time. Yes.
This has
Let's get on
been
to.
Delta Source, your number one source for real life historical connections. And until next time, may the force be with you.
With you.